Oh, I was certainly shattered last night when Jimmy rang me. There's no doubt about that. It was a bit after 8 o'clock and the phone call came through. And Jimmy said, I've got some bad news, and he said, I've got some shit news for you. So I don't think he needed to say too much after that.
Did you have any suspicion at all that it was coming?
Oh, look, I think if you're a realist, and I think I am, that 186-point loss is it's not a good way to start the week, I don't think. And the situation I'm in with another 5 or 6 weeks to go, currently being reviewed, well, as of a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, being reviewed by the club. I don't think you could select a worse result for someone running into the last 5 or 6 weeks who's being reviewed in the last 6 or 7 weeks of the season. So,
coaches don't love their players because they do so much for them.
yeah.
Do you feel that away from the players?
I think the players let themselves down more than anything else. I mean, the players play the game. They're the ones who are putting their bodies on the line every minute of the game. So, they were shattered themselves. You know, they were. It was a game that I think was played almost outside of them and in front of them, and they were watching what an elite team can do, who are on the precipice of the possibility of winning another grand final. And unfortunately, we were very reactionary, and the boys played that way. Not one player would go out there intentionally every week to play like that. I mean, I know that. I know the players better than that.
What reasons were you given? What explanation was given to you? It wasn't just Saturday. What order were you told by Jim last night for this?
Well, that's an interesting question, because at the moment the understanding that I have is that it's the 186 point is really the straw that broke the camel's back, as far as I'm aware.
But no one else at the club's lost their job. In fact, the CEO's been given a contract extension. Do you think you're the sole problem?
Well, when you're the coach at the football club, you take on an enormous amount of responsibility. And when the team doesn't perform well, you stand up, put your hand up and say, well, you burden that load. And I had no hesitation after the game in saying it, and I have no hesitation now. I mean, my responsibility is to educate, coach, teach the players, to ensure that they're ready to play from a training point of view, to try and create an environment where they can get the best out of themselves, which I think we've got here at AAMI. And if they don't perform, you analyse the game, you watch the game, and then you re-educate, reteach, and you get on with the following week. The game on the weekend was just such a whirlwind situation that the players were caught up in it. And, they tried to play quicker, faster, more often than not, and unfortunately it just kept feeding the opposition. But it is what it is. I walk into the job eyes wide open, knowing what the expectations are, knowing what the results could be. And I remember Mick Malthouse last year in the Coach Association saying there's a bullet flying around, we've all got our names on it. Unfortunately, I got hit last night.
Pre-game Saturday, Dean, what were your expectations about the short to mid-term future?
For the rest of this year, or?
Yeah, well, in terms of how you saw the rest of this year unfolding and what your prospects were being extended next year.
I felt that if we could be, competitive for the rest of the 5 or 6 weeks, I felt that if we could certainly look at, if not winning a game in the next, the Hawthorn, Geelong, Carlton, West Coast block, we were really keen to win one of those games. But we were really keen to compete in as many of those quarters, because I think if we can compete in it, then you get confident, and in the following week you have a chance to win the game. I felt we could have won one of those, and I'm confident that we should win the last 3.
Does
So.
it depend, Dean, you think you're on regular finals, so not too many coaches get moved on when you can possibly make finals?
Well, I'm not sure what the history of coaches getting sacked, but I don't think 186 points helps. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a big ask for the club to sit back and say, well, and tell supporters and tell members and convince people around the club that, gee, this is the guy who can coach us, but by the way, he's just lost by 186 points. I mean, the reality is still there. I don't think you can run away from it. You just got to suck it up and face it up, to be honest.
Sorry, Dean. Could you get the players to play the way you want them to play?
Oh, I've got no doubt in the first 2 years we were really... The list changes we made, the personnel that we had to move on in the first 2 years to get draft picks, but also start to, not only rebuild a list, but also rebuild a playing list as well. And that just takes 3-4 drafts, and then it takes 60, 80 games We felt that last year we were heading in the right direction in game plan to how we were trying to move the football. We were certainly pressing last year at times. We were certainly trialling a few things with a young group that had just started to play together, and we progressed during the pre-season on those fundamentals of not just pressing but other areas of the game that we felt we needed to get better in, particularly from a young group having to play a lot of games together. And at times it worked particularly well, and unfortunately at times we had big holes in our press, in our zone, but the want to do it and the attitude to do it's been terrific by the players. I mean, their attitude to take on the new teachings from last year and this year's been first class, and it will click. It just does. And the experience at Essendon and certainly at Port Adelaide is when you get the group at the right age and they've had enough games together, game plans and execution, they roll from a week to week, quarter to quarter situation, and we're heading down that path. It's going to be a very, very exciting group. To answer your question, Mike, to think forward again, my plan was next year to be playing finals next year. I felt that we were a good club to make finals next year.
It's very hard to talk about successor.
Sorry?
Very hard to talk about a successor. But what sort of coach do they need to take this club forward?
I would think that the Melbourne Footy Club will make the best decision on who coaches forward. So that is a big decision to be made by Jimmy and the board. And I sit here thinking the names that roll off the top of the tongue are the same ones in all your minds thinking right now. And there's some very, very good candidates who could come to a very, very good club.
And experienced coach.
Yeah, experienced club. Yeah, well, I'm not sure whether they're prepared to go back and find look at an experienced coach in the sense of he may be an experienced assistant coach. I think sometimes we lack that thinking when you're talking about coaching. If it's an experienced assistant coach, you may not have senior coached. But from what I heard Jimmy say, they're going to go after the best candidate. So if you're going to go after the best candidate, you're going to have deep pockets.
Sorry, Dean, have you spoken to the players here at the end of the day, conveyed their... I mean, I get it from watching their comments late yesterday that they were not happy that you were being singled out. I've texted a few players, and the concern that I have is that the players now will be more focused and distracted on me being sacked and playing next weekend. The players have been very, very supportive. They've been very, very encouraging. I can't think of a single player that I've coached in the last 2 or 3 weeks who wouldn't be right behind me, who wouldn't put their hand up to go out and play well for me. And I think that's a reflection of the playing group, and I've got no hesitation in saying that. They're in the room here. If they were in the room here, I'm sure there's a couple out the back. So what would you have done differently, do you think?
Well, if we hadn't been beaten by so much, I mean, that's a big loss. I mean, it's an ugly looking thing. Doesn't matter how many times you look at it and shape it and spin it and turn it, it's an ugly looking thing.
Were you concerned before the game that the playing group was very tired, pretty run down as a result of the season and their age?
Yeah, those elements come into it. But look, we prepare them pretty well. Our sports science is pretty good. Joel Hocking does a wonderful job. Our training loads are very well monitored and everything. So, from a physical point of view, we're probably showing a few signs. Mentally is always the concern. How you need to be mentally off a little bit, and when you're playing against a team who, the way they play, they look like they'd been almost tapered for that game going into finals with 6 weeks to go. Their players were clean. They didn't fumble too much. That's as good as a performance you'll get, mind you, against a team that we didn't put up a lot of opposition. But gee, they were affected by hand and foot, and their decision making was extraordinary.
Dean, you said you had the total support of the players. Did you always believe in the total support of the staff, the senior staff around?
I think I had incredible support from the players, no doubt.
What about the CEO, the footy ops, the football department staff?
Yeah, the thing about starting to pick and choose relationships is that you start to, that also becomes an absolute distraction. And I've always had great support from the players and the coaches, and I continue to have that now.
How hard was it being to drag yourself in here today? Other coaches have sort of gone away and hidden after such moments.
No, I've never
walked away or anything like that in my entire life. So why the hell would I now? I mean, you know, I've said before, you've got to face it, get on with it, suck it up and get on with it. I mean, you know, you can go and hide, and I don't think too many coaches do that, to be honest. They're all pretty brave people, to be honest, but it's the way it is. I mean, you face up to it, and you face up to your responsibility. I've always been like that, and I ain't going to change for anyone else. I haven't walked cup in hand to anyone. I don't intend to do it now.
Dean, I know it's raw at the moment, but the reflection of almost 4 years,
Yeah.
83 games, how do you think you've performed?
Poorly. We haven't won enough games. If we'd won enough games, we all wouldn't be in this theatre, Mike, talking to each other. That's the reality of it.
You made selfless decisions as well, though, for the long term. Like you retired older players that maybe could have won you more games too.
Absolutely. That was the greatest risk we took. The greatest, I suppose, punt that we took during the year was at the start of the year. We had a Andrews report that came out and spoke about how the improvements will come, spoke about the personnel, the changes, the roles change, all those sorts of things, and it was a positive influence in the sense of projecting forward. I made a decision in the sense of exposing all our players, as many as we could this year, so they could really find out what we've got. Because I think this year is always going to be that platform where the following years are going to be built on this type of a year. Obviously not losing by 186 points, but certainly built on the experience that the players have gained this year. I have no hesitation at all in the first 2 years of ensuring this club was well placed for draft picks, well placed in going forward. I had no hesitation at all last year in ensuring that the guys we picked, form was important, but we also had to give them some experience at times. And I think some of the guys had to get a couple of extra games into them for the importance for next year and the year on. You don't win premierships unless you build a list. And the list is not 21 or 22. You've got to build a list of 28 to 32, and they've got to be ready to go at any given time in their career and any given time when the team needs it. That's why teams are successful. That's why you look at the Collingwoods and West Coast and Sydney, the premiership teams in recent years. Certainly Geelong have been exceptional at their list management and how they've handled their list. I have no hesitation in what we've done. I think what we've done is the right thing by the club. If it costs me my job, so be it. But the club is always bigger than the individual.
Dean, can I just ask the same question I asked Don and Jimmy? Is the time right for Gary Lyon to put his hand up?
Go and ask Gary.
I mean, has he been helpful? I know he was on subcommittee, wasn't it? That it was looking at changes.
Yeah.
You've had quite a few comments throughout the year. Has he been helpful to you? I mean, is Gary...
Your question was, should Gary Lyon go and ask Gary? I mean, we're all sitting in a room here. Someone could probably ring him and ask him. You've all got phones, I'm sure. I don't know, is that too simplistic to just ring him and ask him? Because he's a club legend and he wants to help, so it makes sense. Someone will ring him.
Yeah, but you
Was
know what it takes.
unsettling for you and you
No.
that there was this spectre of
No.
legendary figure sitting behind the scenes?
No, Gary's influence, or Gary's input to the club was like Don and Jim said. You know, he comes and assists. I think he spoke at the Norm Smith inauguration during the year, and he was outstanding. He's a Melbourne person, and he wants his club to do well.
You had been campaigning for Alistair Clarkson in the last 6 to 8 weeks. It didn't seem to have helped you your cause when he's considered this figure that people in Melbourne turn to. And there he is suggesting Alistair Clarkson would be a perfect fit for this club.
Yeah, well, like all opinions, he has one, and he made that perfectly clear through the media. So,
Given those selfless decisions and long-term decisions you were determined to make, do you feel let down?
no, because that comes with the risk. I mean, you know, my plan was very clear with the board, very clear with the players, and we recruited that way, that this was going to be the year that was either going to propel me as a coach into a number of years, hopefully, or it was the year that was going to end up in front of a room full of media people thinking, you know, we're here to talk about the coach that's just been sacked. So that was it was very black and white on what we were trying to do, and I had no hesitation in doing it. And would I change it again? No, I wouldn't, because it was all about preparing this club for the next year and the following years to be a consistent finals team.
Dean, when you hung up the phone last night from Jim Styles, what did you do with him? How were you feeling?
Look, I was obviously very disappointed because, you know, I felt that game on the weekend was it was an embarrassing game. It was humiliating. You know, the pain that the players felt, the coaches are feeling the same thing. You know, it was incredibly disappointing, and you start to think 186 points, gee, that's a lot of points in a game. And then on the drive home back to Melbourne, I often try and sit in someone else's shoes, stand in their feet, think what they'd be thinking, and if I was a board member, I'd be thinking, gee, I'm not sure how we can sell that one.
So what did you do after you hung up the phone last night? Talk to your wife?
Yeah, no, I spoke to my wife, yeah.
What'd you say? Just on the door?
Yeah, I said, Jimmy's just given me the news that I've been removed as coach and I've been sacked.
Been a good coach.
So then I ducked because she threw something at me.
I was just about to say you've been a coach who's been pretty level with your emotions. Did they sort of let loose last night, just in the behind closed doors?
No, because once the phone call was made, once the decision was, once Jimmy just said to me that we're basically removing you as coach, you've got the next 6 or 7 weeks to then be able to, you know, seek out further opportunities, whether they're still in the football industry or whether they're in the media or wherever. He basically said you've got an opportunity now to look outside of football, or it gives you a chance to prepare if we tell you early enough. I would have liked to have hung in there for another 5 or 6 weeks, backed myself in, won games and got to a finals. I'm a very competitive person. I would have loved to have had that opportunity.
You see yourself as a career coach still in a senior assistant's role, if not a senior role in the future?
Oh, I enjoy coaching. You know, it's a great industry that I'm in. I mean, you could argue that today's an ordinary day for myself, but you move on quickly in the business, and I love what I do. I enjoy coaching. I enjoy all aspects of the footy industry as well. Your chair's looking pretty good, Steve. You're well dressed today, so I could probably replace you pretty easily, I would think.
You were a scrapper as a player, Dean. I mean, if people remember you were overly blessed with, you know.
I had, oh, James said, go to the absolute elite, Robbo. No, I had great speed, Robbo. I just didn't show it often enough, that's all.
Are you a fighter? I mean, are you
Absolutely.
Get back into footy?
Absolutely.
Stay in footy?
Absolutely. I got sacked in '92 as a player. It took me 8 years to get back in the business in 2000 when Kevin Sheedy gave me a chance.
So Dean, I know it's early days, but you did change your life to coach the Melbourne Footy Club. You moved your family and your boys to different schools in South Australia. Would you move the family again if the opportunity presented itself at any level of the club?
I moved, in '92 I went to Adelaide for 3 years. From Adelaide I went to Brisbane for 3.5 years. From Brisbane I went back to Melbourne at the start of 2000. And then I went to Adelaide in 2002, and then I came to Melbourne in 2007. So you got to follow what you love, and I'll continue down that path. But I was prepared to move my family on 4 or 5 occasions to get to. Maybe that's a little bit selfish, I don't know, but my wife and kids have been terrific.
Now that you're no longer the senior coach, do you think Tom Scully will be playing here next year?
I haven't changed my opinion at all. I think he'll be here. I don't know whether my situation changes or not. I don't know. You'll have to ask Tom, but he's a terrific young man.
What are some of your fondest memories of the time at club?
Fondest memories. The Junction Oval is a very fond memory. I can still see the maggots on Kelly O'Donnell's computer, which was a fond memory. Yeah, that's a fact. We saw them dropping off the little railing, Cal, just the top there, and they're just falling off onto your laptop. I think the fact that when you're actually able to draft young men to a footy club, that gives you a great deal of pleasure. And the best of those players are still to come. I mean, you're going to see some. We got some young blokes who are going to be very, very resilient. We've got some players on our list already from an experience point of view who are very resilient. I mean, Brad Green's as resilient as you get, I think. But when you can introduce and you're part of the start of their career, that's pretty special.
When you start making phone calls to Matthew Harris or Stephen Tree, will you do that straight away?
No, I don't think so.
You won't get them
I said I wouldn't ring him straight away. That doesn't mean I'm not going to ring him. But we'll see. Look, I'm keen to stay in, as I said, I'm keen to stay in the business. It's a great industry, and coaching is in my blood. But you now widen your horizon on what may or may not be available. And I think I've got a hell of a lot more to offer. I'm still only 44 and I haven't lost all my hair yet, so I've still got a few years in the business to go.
Do you plan to address all the players as a group, or were you asked to do that?
I spoke to the players before very quickly. We, the football club's got a game this weekend, and the distraction that is already here is enough. The distraction in their preparation is already enough as far as I'm concerned. So I know my relationship with the players. I know them better than anyone else. I don't need to stand up and ask for their support. I know exactly what they're saying to me. I've heard it. They've told me. And I hope they win on the weekend.
Dean, it's a really tough question. Were you ever asked to tank games in the football club?
I experimented to a level, Robbo, that meant that we got players into certain positions and we developed them in those positions, and I think they've benefited from it and will in the future.
What does that mean? They didn't tank?
We put players into really strong positions to ensure that they gain some benefit from the games. I mean, it was really important. You can't expect a player to go out there and just not try. I mean, players were trying. Of course they were trying during that period of time.
Did you manipulate positions and game styles so that the club wasn't always a favourite position to win games?
I was asked to do the best thing by the Melbourne Football Club, and I did it. I did the right thing by the Melbourne Football Club. I put players into different positions to enable them to encourage it.
Who else did you do that?
I think the whole football club agreed that we want to develop our players, so we did.
All right, thanks guys.
Thanks, guys.